All right, guys, we're going to want to look at that discussion question that you had the last couple days. So the question was, who are the most important people of the last 120 years? And we got a lot of good responses. And typically, the list usually does shake out the same way with this, the same type of people at the top. Let's talk about that a little bit as we move forward, as we get into the start of World War One. Okay, so how might a person make a list like this? Okay, they might be the leader of a country, the president. You got somebody like FDR, Ronald Reagan. There might be a prime minister who does some important things. Somebody like Winston Churchill, who stands up to Hitler during and before World War II. You have Margaret Thatcher, a dictator. Okay, somebody like Adolf Hitler or Joseph Stalin. Somebody who's a military leader. Okay, General Patton, Eisenhower, who becomes a president. Von Moltke, who we're going to talk about when we talk about World War One. Okay, somebody who's a civilian. Okay, who does some things that may or may not be good, good or bad, right? So you got Gandhi. Obviously, we talked a lot about him. You got Osama bin Laden. You got Martin Luther King. A scientist, somebody like Einstein or Robert Oppenheimer. An inventor, somebody like the Wright brothers, Steve Jobs. Okay, to make this list, you have to do something memorable, right? You're not going to just put somebody on there just because. Somebody who is on this list has done something that has either influenced you or has influenced the world around you, okay? Remember, to be memorable and to be one of these most influential people or to be one of these most important people in history, okay, you might have done something good and you may have done something bad, right? So a lot of people put Hitler. We don't really know Hitler for a lot of good things, right? He's all bad things. So a lot of people are going to put him on the list, right? Because of what he did with the Holocaust. Okay? So the question was asked, who was the most important figure in the last 120 years? Here's who got some votes. Okay, many figures received votes. Some of the people are more well known and some are people that you that many of you have not heard of or learned about. All right, so Thomas Edison, Steve Jobs, Nelson Mandela, FDR, Rosa Parks. Okay, these are people that you're familiar with. Robert Oppenheimer, you might not be familiar with him. You'll learn about him when you're juniors, when you start talking about World War II and the atomic bomb. Cesar Chavez, the Tank Man from 1989 in China. The Wright brothers, Neil Armstrong, Alexander Fleming, another scientist. Nikola Tesla, okay, an inventor. Donald Trump and Susan B. Anthony. Okay, these are all people that you have voted for. Now we don't. Fortunately, our votes don't add up to the number of students I have, so I'm not really happy about that. But we'll keep working at it, right? All right. So here are the top four. Here are the top four people who received votes. Okay, coming in at number 4 with 17 votes was Adolf Hitler. Okay, you all know who Adolf Hitler was. He was the leader of Germany during the 1930s. He starts the Holocaust. Okay, he's the reason for World War II. Nearly was killed in World War One, and we'll talk about that as we move forward, going into World War One. All right, we'll get into his history a little bit more. Okay, evil, despicable human being to most people, but he makes this list for bad things. Okay, mainly for the Holocaust. Okay, Albert Einstein. Okay, you got a lot of votes, a lot more than I'm used to. So Einstein, a great scientist. Okay, he was of German descent. He left Germany during Hitler's rise to power and came to the United States. He knew that if he stayed in Germany that Hitler was going to use him to create this ultimate weapon, which instead he came to the United States and did the same thing. Okay, so he helps create the atomic bomb. Okay, very influential person, very important person in history. Gandhi. Okay, we just spent a lot of time on him. Okay, obviously he led India to independence from Great Britain using nonviolence. He paved the way for people like Martin Luther King down the road, right? Interestingly enough, number 1 on our list is Martin Luther King. Okay, he's the most prominent leader of the civil rights movement in the 1960s in the United States. He gets 39 votes from the 5 classes that I have. Okay, interesting, Martin Luther King always beats Gandhi, but Gandhi is really the precursor to what Martin Luther King does. Okay, but Martin Luther King has a bigger impact in the United States, and I think that's why he receives, he's always at the top of the list. But in my opinion, I think we missed the person that's the most important of the last 120 years. Okay, I'm not downplaying anything that these other people did at all. Okay, they all have links throughout history. They all have had a lasting impact on us over the years. But this one person that we didn't put down, anybody, nobody ever votes for him, may have had the most impact of all, okay? And his name is Gavril Princip. Okay, I put the zero because nobody votes for him ever. Okay, he is the man responsible for the death of the Archduke, Franz Ferdinand. He is the person that is going to ignite the fuse that is going to start World War I. Well, wait a second. Huh? This guy? But I've never even heard about him. All these other people before I've heard about. Without Gavril Princip, okay, pulling a trigger in 1914 that kills the Archduke, the future king, we may never have some of these other events that take place. So I'm going to leave this here. I'm going to talk to you about some of these other events. I'm going to mention some of these other events. And you tell me that Gavril Princip isn't a pretty important person. Okay? So he kills the Archduke, right? So he starts World War I. Russia is involved in World War I. Russia's having a pretty bad time in World War I, and they end up leaving the war, and they have a revolution. And their revolution leads to communism. They start communism in Russia. Okay? Does Russia become communist if not for the action of Gavril Princip? We never will know. Okay? They were kind of on the brink of it, but this kind of pushed it forward. Okay? Then you have the end of the war. Okay, and the Treaty of Versailles. The Treaty of Versailles is going to be very harsh to Germany. The German people don't really like it. All right, and we're going to talk about the Treaty of Versailles later on. Okay, the Treaty of Versailles also talks about the creation of the modern Middle East. Okay, and when they create the modern Middle East, they do so without taking into account anything that's already there. They just go in and they divide it up and create their own countries. Okay, again, most of the Europeans and the Americans, without taking any ideas or knowledge of what's happening in the Middle East as it is. Okay, so think about the creation of the modern Middle East. Okay, the Treaty of Versailles is going to give way to the rise of Hitler. Okay, and the Holocaust. That leads to World War II, which leads to the atomic bomb. The end of World War II, the Paris Peace Conference, the division of Germany, which is going to usher in the Cold War between the United States and Russia. Okay, though they never fight, there's this constant tension, this constant power struggle. Okay, who's going to get the first person in space? Who's going to be the first person on the moon? Okay, there's going to be the Korean War. Okay, it kind of stems from the Cold War. We never actually fight Russia, but we're both in the region. Okay, the Vietnam War later on down the line. Okay, the rise of Ronald Reagan. Okay, with promises to end the Cold War. Okay, the Russian war in Afghanistan, the 1980s. Okay, which ushers in the era of Osama bin Laden, who hates the West, which leads us to 9/11. 9/11 kind of gives us the world that we live in today. So now I'm not saying that Gavril Princip did all of these events, but without Gavril Princip in place, without Gavril Princip pulling the trigger that day, do all those events necessarily happen? Or may they have happened in different ways? May history have unfolded differently? Okay, this guy sets off a chain reaction that in many ways we are still experiencing on some level today. Okay, so we're going to talk about this guy. You guys are going to watch a video about this guy. He is a relatively unknown historical figure who may be one of the most important figures in history. Okay? Thank you. Have a good one. Keep doing the great work, guys. I'm very proud of you. I've had some discussions with some other teachers. I've had some discussions with VPs, principals, and all I keep saying is, for the most part, my students are doing what they need to be doing, and they're working hard. They're getting their things done. Their grades really haven't suffered. So keep up the good work. And we'll get through this together. All right? Take care.